Salutations YouTube, I am back with another video. Sorry for not uploading last week, I just could not be bothered as I was tired and busy. I was going to do a different style of video today, but I thought this one, I couldn't say no to it. Now sometimes monsters don't look like the ones you see in movies, they look like you and me. So in this video I'll be telling you two more stories of people who encountered real monsters. But before we get into that, get yourself a drink, get yourself a snack, make yourself comfortable. And these stories are going to be a bit long, hence why there's only two. And mainly because I couldn't find one good enough for a third one. You might know these two, especially if you're British. So, in early 1983, residents of a tower block in North London began complaining about their drains being clogged. Initially, the landlord was dismissive and said that it's just an old building with old plumbing and that's why it was slow. Eventually, the landlord relented and asked a plumber to come out and have a look. On the 8th of February, a plumber came to the apartment complex, and after learning what the complaints were, he went around to the side of the building and he opened up a drain cover to have a look inside. As expected, when he shined his light down, he saw wads of hair and tissues and other things all clumped up together. He reaches in and began pulling the clumps out and putting them into a bucket beside him. When he had cleared most of the blockage, he reached his arm nearly all the way in to feel around as he couldn't see. As he was reaching, his hand hit a major blockage, so he moved his fingers to try and feel what it was, but he couldn't tell. He said that it was soft with something hard inside it. Stop it. I know what you're thinking, dirty bastards. He pulled his arm out to see what he was holding. It was meat, and inside this meat there were little bits of bone. The plumber had seen all sorts of things blocking drains in his life, but meat was a first. He decided it was getting late, so he decided to pack up and come back tomorrow with his supervisor. On his way back, two residents asked if the drains had been unblocked, to which he said no, and he got in his truck and drove away. The next morning, the plumber and his supervisor went back to the apartment complex and went to the side of the building. They unscrewed the drain cap and the plumber reached inside to pull more of this blockage out, but strangely, it had gone. They said that there's no way it cleared on its own and that someone had to have removed it. They thought it was strange, but ultimately decided to make sure each apartment's drains were unblocked. And they were, except for one. That apartment, number 23, their drain was still full of this meaty substance. Now, if you're a fan of this sort of monster, and if you're British, you might know this guy. I made a video about him. The plumber and the supervisor got suspicious and decided to tell the landlord, to which the landlord then freaks out and calls the police. When the police turned up, they pulled out more of the meaty substance and sent it to a mortuary where a pathologist would test it and say, yes, this is meat. It's human meat. To be specific, this piece of meat you sent, it's part of a human neck. The police go back to the complex and knock on the door of apartment 23, and when the door opened, they were greeted with the unmistakable stench of death. And standing in the doorway was a man in his late 30s, early 40s. The police say, hey, can we have a look around your apartment? To which the owner is sort of taken aback and asks why. They tell him that they have found human meat in his pipes, and the owner goes, oh my god, I can't believe it, that's horrible. However, the police are not buying it, and they say, you know what, Stop messing with us. Tell us where the rest of the body is. At this point, the owner of the apartment turns expressionless and says, "It's in 2 plastic bags in the cupboard." The police go into the apartment, and before they inspect the bags, they ask the owner if there were any more bodies they should know about. The owner sighs, looks up at the ceiling and says, "Yeah, there's about 15 or 16 bodies here. It's a long story, it goes way back. I'd love to tell you, get it off my chest, and I'll do it at the police station." The apartment was called Cranley Gardens. It's still standing today. The owner of apartment 23 was called Dennis Nilsen. He was a serial killer who was convicted of 15 murders. He was given a whole life sentence without the possibility of parole, and he died in prison in 2018. It recently well, I say recently, it was about 3 years ago, it got turned into a series, originally by ITV. It's now on Netflix. It's called Des. And obviously, Dennis Nilsen is played by David Tennant. You don't see any of the murders, unfortunately. I don't know why I'm saying unfortunately, but if you're going to make a series about a serial killer, show some fucking kills. It's just his arrest and the investigation. It was pretty mediocre. But then again, it's by the ITV, so wasn't really expecting much. Oh, we're only 6 minutes, nearly 7 minutes in. I thought it'd be longer than this. Anyway, second and last story. I'll stop halfway through to give you a chance to guess who the guy is. It was April 1980, and a woman called Felicity Nightingale would be working in a village in mid-Wales all summer. One day she met a driver who never told her his name, but she remembers his presence clearly. She recalled that he was the strangest man she'd ever met in her time hitchhiking. She said it was an encounter she would never forget. After hitching a ride to a service station on the M5, somebody offered to give her a lift. She found it odd that he offered without her even asking, but he seemed nice enough. They all do, don't they? The man said that he'll give her a ride and told her to throw her rucksack in the back seat. I'm sorry if you hear that squeaking, that's just me sitting up on my bed. She kept insisting that she'd rather have her bag up front with her, but the man repeated to her that it's fine and that she shouldn't worry. When he said he was actually in the mood for a cup of tea, she was relieved. She thanked him and said that she'll just try somebody else. He responded, "Come for tea. What's the harm in a cup of tea?" I mean, being British myself, there's absolutely no harm in a cup of tea. The two mismatched strangers sat in the service station and had tea together, with the stern driver asking her all about her family and how they felt about her hitchhiking habit. She explained that they weren't too happy about it, but it allowed her some independence. He said, "That's ridiculous. They obviously don't care about you. No parent who cared about their daughter would let her hitchhike." I somewhat agree. If I had a daughter, I would not want her hitchhiking. If I had a son, I would not want him hitchhiking. Too many knobheads about these days. Felicity Nightingale thought he was a bit rude, but certainly not dangerous. She thought that he had a volcanic temper, but he certainly did not seem to have any sexual motive. So she hitched a ride with him after tea. He kept urging her to meet and stay with his wife and family in Tewkesbury, which she found weird. She just wanted to get home to Weymouth, and she made that very clear to him. He got increasingly angry at her, lying to her that they needed to drive through Tewkesbury to get to Weymouth, which was an obvious lie. He told her he needed to see a friend nearby and that he'd drop her off and pick her up on the way back. She said that he was so angry she actually thought he was going to lean across and hit her. So when he stopped, she did what he had said and got out of the van. Fortunately, she quickly caught another ride which dropped her back off at the service station, from which she safely found her way home. It was 14 years later that she found out that the man who had picked her up that night was Fred West. He was a serial killer who, along with his wife Rose, killed 12 young women and girls. Rose is still in jail to this day and will never be released, and Fred killed himself in 1995 before he could be convicted. Coward. That's going to do it for those two stories. It's 11 minutes in and I'm surprised I've finished them both. But yeah, let me know what you think about that. Let me know if I should do more stories like this or move on to something different. Let me know what you think. I made a post on my YouTube page saying that I'm going to be doing something different each week. I am going to do that. It's just going to take a lot of researching. But I'm interested to hear your feedback as always. And if you could be so kind, please like the video. Subscribe to the channel. I want to get 200 by the end of the year, but I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, I'm rambling. So yeah, please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.